I'm Ayelet Waldman.
I'm Paul Waldman.
This is Boundary Issues.
So in our last episode, we talked in miserable and depressing terms about how unhappy everybody was about the situation with Joe Biden because it looked like at the time that he was going to stubbornly stay in the race for president. And then soon after, he left. And now Kamala Harris is going to be the Democratic nominee. So, Ayelet, tell me about the vibe shift that you have seen in the world that you inhabit since this happened.
It's been incredible. I mean, it's been truly incredible. I don't know a single person who isn't excited. And I'm not talking like, okay, few, because there was certainly that. It was like, oh, thank God, thank God, thank God. But like, people are genuinely excited about Kamala, like, really thrilled. And I've known her for a long time. In 2007, we got to know each other through the Obama campaign. And I would like to say that in 2007, I was telling everybody she would be the first woman president. Just saying. And I told her that too. People like her in California. Anybody who knows her really likes her because she's so personable and unaffected and a genuine. But obviously, she didn't win the primary. There wasn't excitement. But now it's so exciting for me is I feel like everybody is feeling this, like, it's not just no Biden, although God knows that helps. It's, oh my God, we have a chance to make history, yes, but also to make history with this particular woman who we love. And all the shit the Republicans say about her, we actually love. Like, you sent out your Substack with that like long thing of her laughing. Everybody loves, you cannot watch that without laughing yourself. Like, she brings joy. And we love watching the Kavanaugh hearings and hearing her, just be tough and strong and not be moved from her spot. So it's exciting. It's like, it's just, we had this group of female showrunners who raised a shit ton of money and motivated to get the studios to, take a stand on abortion rights. We raised like $3.5 million for abortion funds post-ops. And that group is like back together and getting excited both about fundraising, but more importantly about creating content. Because one of the most exciting things is there's no time to vet. And like when we were doing stuff for Obama, it was like every fucking thing had to be vetted by 25 layers. So by the time you were done, your energy was sapped. And now it's 60 days till early voting starts. So we're just like, okay, we're going to make this spot and we're going to make this video and we're going to make this meme and we're just going. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, there's some interesting things going on. I think that, first of all, so much of politics is about timing. And this is something I've been on about a lot, that this is really, I think, the perfect time for her in ways that reinforce some of her strong suits and set aside some of the things about her that are maybe less compelling, that has all kind of come together. And I think there was a storyline about her that developed over time, really since 2020, saying that she was not a particularly capable politician. And there's a couple things about this that I think were never really accurate. The first is that in the 2020 primaries, it wasn't so much that she was kind of a dud or anything like that. It was just that she really couldn't find her place in that primary campaign. It ended up being about this division between the liberals on one side, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and the more moderate candidates on the other side, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg. And Harris couldn't really sort of find her place in that. And that was why her campaign didn't really go
Because she's
very many
both,
places.
She's really progressive
Yes,
on
it's a
certain
little
things and she's
her
much more
ideological.
moderate on others.
Yeah, her ideological position is a little more complicated. And then she becomes vice president, of course, which just, you have to subsume yourself to the president, and that necessarily kind of tones you down. I think also one of the things that I think is notable about her is that she does have a lot of charisma, but you can see it the most in more sort of intimate settings She's very charming and personable when you see her talking with somebody one on one or in small groups, maybe less so when she's in front of a crowd. But the other thing is, I think she has gotten a lot better at that.
Hmm.
And you can see that in the initial campaigning that I think she is better in front of those crowds. She's feeling more confident, a little bit less sort of restrained and worried about whether she's going to make a mistake. So it does all seem to be coming together for her in this time when there's not a lot of time. Perhaps if this was a year-long campaign, it might not go as well. But right now, there's just been this explosion of enthusiasm. And I think you're right that it's partly just relief because Democrats are feeling so despondent and so morose and pessimistic. And now all of that has been just turned over, and people are taking another look at her and saying, "Oh, wait, this is somebody I can actually get behind." And so it's all just coming together, kind of in a perfect set of circumstances. Now, you never know; things could change. The polls are tied. We don't really know, for instance, what sort of a force misogyny and racism that have already emerged are going to be. But now it looks like the best set of circumstances that she could possibly have.
So I have a question for you. Do you think they put her on ice in the White House? Do you think like the Biden team, which by the way, don't get me fucking started about the Biden team who lied to us for he has been out of it for at least a year and they just covered up, covered up, covered up. Reprehensible. But do you think the Biden team iced her because they didn't want, maybe because she was more vibrant than he is, maybe because they knew they were going to run him again whether he was a wax doll or not, and they didn't want to give her any sense that she had a possibility of running against him? Like, what do you think, that was really purposeful or not?
I don't think so. I think it's the natural situation with a president and a vice president. The people who are in charge in the White House are the president's people, and their entire focus is on him and enhancing his image and making sure that he is doing a good job and putting into place his agenda and his vision. And the vice president just inevitably gets kind of put to the side. There are unique circumstances like Cheney with Bush where the vice president can really set up their own power center, but they're always just going to be a supporting character in this drama that is about the president. And it doesn't have to be something sort of cruel and conspiratorial, although, there is also inevitably, I think, a little bit of competition, maybe a little jealousy. The vice president will have her own people and the president will have his own people, and they will, to a degree, be kind of separate camps. And so there's never going to be a desire in the president's inner circle to say, let's elevate the vice president. Let's see if we can, really enhance her image. That's not their priority. Their priority is on using her as one of many tools to enhance his image and to get his vision put into place. So I think it's just inevitable. It doesn't necessarily mean there was any kind of ill will. There might have been, I don't know, but that's just the nature of that relationship. And that's part of what's happening too, is when you're vice president, as I say, you're a supporting character, but now all of a sudden she is the protagonist of this story, and that allows her to flourish in a way that she wasn't allowed to for 4 years.
Do you think his people are going to transfer to her campaign? Because that would be terrible. She's got to
Some of them
staff
are.
up in a way, and they are so fucking, their message sucks, their capacity sucks, they're dishonest. Like, I feel like we need like Obama people, not Biden people. Like those old
Yes.
farts,
So
those 90-year-old bozos, they're not going to like wheel their walkers across, are they? Because that would be terrible.
obviously she faces a dilemma in that this has to be done very, very fast.
Right.
So it's an advantage that she has a whole organization in place. She doesn't have to build it from scratch. She's got all the money, and they've already raised something like $200 million, which is just mind-boggling.
Hmm.
In addition to about $100 million that they had in the bank before. But it looks like they're keeping some of the people. Jen O'Malley Dillon, who's I guess the campaign chief strategist, is staying. They're also talking about bringing on David Plouffe, who was the campaign manager for Obama's race in 2008.
Yeah. Can I tell you
And
a story
so
about
it
David
looks like it's
Plouffe?
going to be a combination.
I
Sure.
loved Pluff until Pluff's wife told me right before the election that he had filled his fridge with Orange Crush and was feeling 1,000% positive on Hillary, and then we were wiped out. And so I will never trust Pluff again, but he is a good campaigner.
Again, you have a petty personal story for every person who
I
emerges. so so it looks like she's sort of doing a combination of two things: keeping in place the people that she trusts and thinks are doing a good job, and then bringing on other people uh, to sort of fill out her team. But she doesn't necessarily have a huge group of staffers that can immediately just lock into place. And also, but you're right in that Biden's sort of innermost circle, which really consists of just 5 or 6 people, it doesn't look like they're going to be involved. And
few.
that's
That's
people
a
like
huge.
Mike Donilon, who's been with him for decades, and Biden's sister has long been one of his key advisors. A couple of those inner circle people don't look like they're going to be involved in the Harris campaign. And also part of the problem in terms of the messaging and stuff was that it was they were dealing with a particular candidate and a particular appeal that he had. And she's a different
Also,
candidate and has a
they
different kind
were
of appeal.
like him, afraid of abortion. What I love about her is that is our issue. We are going to win on abortion. And so it's got to be front and center. And she knows that. And she's putting it because she believes it. And Biden was not personally pro choice. You could see him being like, ick, ick, abortion. And he wouldn't talk about it. So, like, this issue that is, we fucking won Kansas on abortion, this issue that's our most important issue, more important than the economy, stupid, she's not afraid to run on. So that's really exciting to all of us. I mean, to every one of us. I've had 3 abortions, Paul. 3. Like, this is a hugely important issue to me. When I was pre-menopause, I couldn't like walk by my husband without getting pregnant. um
And this shows you how both the party and the individual matter, because in policy, Joe Biden was as pro-choice as any other Democrat would be because he is a creature of his party and that's what his party demands. But when it came to talking about it and messaging about it, he was deeply uncomfortable with it. You could tell he didn't like to say the word abortion. And so it made for a very different kind of advocacy, even if the policies wouldn't really have been different if Kamala Harris had been the president for the last 4 years. But she is somebody who, for a lot of different reasons, is much more comfortable talking about it and can, as a political issue, capitalize on it in a way that he couldn't. And that brings up another question about the party. One of the complaints Republicans have as they're kind of losing their minds. And this is so extraordinary. If you just think back, just what was it, a week and a half ago at their convention, they were just rapturous.
right.
They're so confident, so happy. Like this was going to be the dawning of a new age for them. They were guaranteed to win. And now they are miserable and depressed and unhappy. And one of the things they've been saying is this was a coup. This is an
Cool.
attack on
Yeah, right.
democracy.
A
That
coup.
a bunch of Democratic donors and elites went in and stole this nomination. And there's no question that it was an elite thing, but the truth is that the elites actually followed the public on this. Even as they were voting for Joe Biden, Democratic primary voters were telling pollsters that they thought he was too old to do the job and they wished somebody else could be a candidate. So they were sort of resigned to it that, who do they have? They go to their primaries and it says, Joe Biden, Dean Phillips, and that's it. And so they voted for Biden and they do feel that he's been a good president, but they wanted somebody else all along.
Yeah,
And it
people were
took the elites a
screaming
while
for
to get
it.
around to agreeing with them.
I mean, there's a reason that Biden went and attacked us, right? I mean, Biden attacked his party saying, how dare you? You have no faith in me. When that wasn't about elites, it was like every single person on earth who wanted to vote for a Democrat wanted Biden out. But I don't give a shit about the Republicans, what they say. But here's a question for you. The timing could not be better. You're always talking about timing. Like, if it had been before the convention, they would have had a really different convention, right? They might even have had a different vice president. So I feel like we rope a dope them, don't you think?
A little bit. And I do want to talk about JD Vance. But yeah, you're right. They built their entire campaign about running against Joe Biden and saying that like the most important thing is whether the president is young and vibrant enough to do the job. And now they're left with a candidate who's 78, I think that he
Yeah,
just had his
78.
birthday,
And
and and is not so young and vibrant anymore. And they really have been thrown for a loop. I mean, what you can see it in the way that they are kind of casting about for the line of attack they want to use on against her. That she's a San Francisco liberal. That's probably going to be a part of it. That she's just radical. That she's crazy. The way Trump talks about it everything is sort of turned up to 11. He says she destroyed San Francisco. She's a lunatic. And none of those things really track. He does this a lot where he goes to his rallies and he tries out a bunch of stuff. The comparison that's often been made is to comedians who go on the road and they test out different jokes and they see what the audience laughs at. That's what Trump does. The trouble is, though, that when he's testing that stuff, who is he testing it in front of? He's testing it in front of his most devoted followers. Those aren't the people that he needs to persuade. What gets the applause in the room at a Trump rally is not necessarily the thing that's going to be the most persuasive. Now, here's something interesting that I want your response to. So I wrote a piece about Kamala Harris's laugh. And this has been the focus of a lot of Republican attention. They really don't like the fact that she laughs. And what's distinctive about her, actually, is that even though she is a politician who at times can be very kind of restrained, we've all seen interviews where she was trying to be really careful and not say the wrong thing. And sometimes that leads her to kind of descend into banality. But she has this big boisterous laugh, and it's very kind of honest and unrestrained. And we aren't used to seeing women in positions of power laugh in a way like that. It's very, very threatening to men to see a woman who is kind of unafraid to laugh and to exhibit some kind of pleasure, and to not, at least for that moment when you laugh, you're kind of letting go, and you can't be worried about whether you're pleasing the men around you or what they think of you when you're laughing. And I think that's why they find it so disturbing.
You're a man. What is your reaction to it? Take away the whole political thing. Like, do you have an uncomfortable reaction to it just as a testosterone-filled human?
No, but because I am a feminist ally.
Yes.
So I look at that, and I also I look at it as I think it seems like an honest moment to me.
Totally.
And
It's totally
so
authentic, right? Like, she's not fake.
So that's what I like about it, that it's different from most politicians. And one of the interesting things about it is that Donald Trump, even though he is a professional comedian, he goes up and does an hour and a half of like Don Rickles material at every rally. He never laughs.
No,
Like,
he has
when
that
have you ever seen Donald
smug
Trump laugh?
smile, that smile, but he doesn't
Yeah.
laugh.
And I think, that's true of other politicians, true. Barack Obama doesn't laugh that much.
But he does
He has this kind of
sometimes.
very reserved cool. That's his whole thing.
But he does
But you don't,
sometimes, and that is
yeah,
always super charming.
it comes across as very authentic. So, but it's really fascinating to see all those those kind of insecure dude bros in the right wing media sphere who are so threatened
Yeah.
when they hear her laugh. And what do you think about it?
Well, I think it's delightful. There isn't a woman I know who doesn't love it. Like, when you see her laugh, it makes you feel good. It makes you laugh. Because it's first of all, laughing is contagious if you're not a fucking addled pencil dick. And it also gives you a sense of her confidence, because you're right. Like, you have to feel a certain amount of confidence to let yourself go like that. Like, that it was that, and then there was this little video I saw where she was talking to kids, and she was speaking very softly, and she was so warm and adorable with those kids, and you could see on her face she was super receptive. And that was kind of a similar thing, because it was this like authentic reaction. One little boy said, "I don't like Donald Trump," and she said, "Me either." And it was just this great moment. And there was like one or two moments in that bit where she starts like putting out a little policy, but then she draws back and she's like, "No, this is just a little child. I'm gonna like be authentic with them."
There's something else about her that I think is interesting. So immediately, of course, there's this wave of racist stuff. If this had been 5 years ago, they would have said she's an affirmative action candidate. Now Republicans are saying she's a DEI candidate. You hear that from members of Congress, from people in right-wing media, even to the point where Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, in a meeting of Republican members, basically told them, like, ixnay on all that stuff. It's really bad. You can't just go out and say she's a DEI candidate. Obviously, they just can't help themselves. I mean, my favorite thing in this, like, just for background, in case people forget, she was a local official, a state official, a federal official. She's been a politician for 20 years. She's done all these different jobs. And so you have for instance, this Republican member of Congress from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, who comes out and says, well, she's a DEI candidate. And now Tim Burchett is a guy whose signature legislative accomplishment is a bill he sponsored in the Tennessee legislature to make it legal to eat roadkill. Like, he's calling her the unqualified one. Now, but here's something interesting about that. So this is kind of like surface level racism that's just a kind of impulsive reaction on their point. It's reflexive. But you haven't really heard the same level of detailed critique about her parentage the way you did with Obama. Like there was so much stuff about how is he really Kenyan, all this, but the fact that Kamala Harris is the child of two immigrants has really not been discussed in all that detail. And what I find interesting about this is that, there's this kind of very profound divide about what you think about this. To squishy liberals like me, this is a tribute to the greatness of America.
Mm-hmm.
That here is somebody whose father was Jamaican, whose mother was Indian. They came to America. They had this daughter. She, achieved, rose up through the ranks, and now she could become president. And this is the best thing of America, is the way we draw talented people from around the world who enhance our country and make it as vibrant and vital and dynamic as it always is. Now, Republicans see that as the worst thing about America.
Right.
Donald Trump does this. Obviously, he says, all immigrants are criminals, whatever. It's not very sophisticated. But if you look at the speech that JD Vance gave at the convention, he has this whole riff about his family's graveyard plot in Kentucky. And he says that if I'm laid to rest there and my children are laid to rest there, there will be 7 generations in my family in that plot in Kentucky. And that is the greatness of America. It's a real kind of blood and soil,
Right.
Herrenvolk sort of appeal, that it's not about immigrants. And he says explicitly, you can come to America, but you have to do it on our terms. Now, who is us? Our terms. It is basically the white people.
Mm-hmm.
What his friend Tucker Carlson calls, quote unquote, legacy Americans,
Oh my
which he
God.
means white people. And Vance has a very explicit rejection of the idea that America is renewed by immigration. Immigration is something we should keep to as low levels as possible, because what really matters is the blood and soil. It's land and people. He says he says explicitly, America is not a set of ideals. The ideals are very nice, blah, blah, blah. But what matters is the land and the people, that this is a nation. And he is absolutely talking about white people. And, that has a lot of appeal.
It's so interesting to me because JD Vance is just like Trump. He doesn't believe any of this shit really, because look at his wife. What he is the worst kind of opportunist. He hates those people, and you saw it in Hillbilly Elegy. So he looks at those people and he's like, "You worthless sacks of shit. I'm going to get you to elect me, and you won't even know why I did it." And that's what Trump does too. What he wanted his whole life was to be accepted by New York, whatever you call the New York aristocracy.
Here's the thing about Vance. So he goes through these these successive iterations. In Hillbilly Elegy, which I have read, by the way, he is extremely disdainful of those people in Appalachia. He says that they are lazy, that they're irresponsible, that they're violent, and their problems are a result of their own character flaws and a kind of a cultural sickness that has led them to this place. Now, that is why people in Appalachia do not like JD Vance. They really,
Mm-hmm.
really don't. They feel like he's not really from there, and he criticizes them in ways that they find insulting and offensive. Then in 2022, he runs for Senate. And what does he do? He tells those same people, or people basically like them in Ohio, no longer talking about their character flaws. Now he says that they are basically the victims of a conspiracy. He has this ad where he comes out and he says, "Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? They want to tell us that we are racist." So it's just playing on those kind of resentments, that there are these elitists off on the coasts who are looking down on you. And he says, literally, that Joe Biden is letting fentanyl into the heartland in order to kill Trump supporters. So that is the kind of bullshit that he uses then to get elected to the Senate. He doesn't. I don't think he believes that either. But the part of this that's left out is, and this is the argument that Tom Schaller and I make in White Royal Rage, is who is the real culprit here?
Available at your local bookstore. Go on.
Yeah, who is the real culprit here for rural America that has caused all these problems? What we say is, immigrants didn't close rural hospitals. elitist coastal professors didn't send jobs overseas. It was not the people that they're being told to hate who were the cause of their problems. What did it? Capitalism. Guess what?
Right.
It was giant agribusiness that destroyed the family farms. It's, Dollar General that is replacing all of the stores on Main Street.
So explain to me why.
Look, the problem is that they concluded, and this is not entirely without reason, that neither party was going to solve their economic problems. And this goes back to that thing that Barack Obama got criticized for in 2008 when he said people cling to guns and religion. What he was talking about in that whole answer, if you look at everything he said, was that people in the heartland decided that Democrats and Republicans were not, neither one of them was going to give them the kind of prosperity they needed. So they just turned to these kind of cultural issues. And they say that this party doesn't like guns, and this party is advocating for a kind of change in gender and family roles that I don't like. And therefore, I'm just going to vote on that stuff. And I'm not going to expect anything better on economics. And this, of course, is a great gift to Republicans because then they don't have to provide them anything. And they can just say, yeah, those Democrats want to take away their guns and they want to force you to gay marry a transgender person. And so that has great appeal if you've just decided that your problems aren't going to get any better.
I think they're going to force your kid to wonder if they're heterosexual or what their gender is, and that's the most threatening thing of all.
And there has been this transformation in the way that education determines votes. That it used to be that Republicans got sizable majorities among people who had college degrees. Now that has flipped, and for a lot of people who are those kind of whatever you want to call them downscale whites, they look at sending their kids to college, and it does feel like it's simultaneously an economic opportunity, but also it is culturally threatening. Like their kid's going to go away to college and they're going to come back with ideas that maybe they don't like, and maybe they're going to challenge their values. And, maybe they might wind up voting Democratic. And that feels like a betrayal.
Just like the values that JD Vance came back with, and by the way, also his wife, please. But because he's such a grotesque opportunist, he forgot all those values. Like those email exchanges and text exchanges with that transgender friend of his from law school, where he shows himself to be an actual thoughtful human being, reaching, able to reach across whatever divide that he experiences to understand someone as a human and love someone as a human, before he, of course, he rolled it all back because he thought, oh, my political career. So he's exactly an example of that, right? Also, can we talk about the couch fucking, because that is like my favorite thing that's ever happened in politics.
Well, I'm not an advocate of the spread of misinformation. For those who are not familiar, some jokester on hold on a second. Some jokester on the internet just said, I guess in a tweet, that there's a part of a Hillbilly Elegy where he talks about fucking his couch, kind of like a Goodbye Columbus, Philip Roth sort of thing, except with a couch instead of a piece of liver.
But then he put another tweet saying it was a joke. It was literally two tweets. The second one said, ha ha ha, to Twitter comedy.
Either it's credulousness or people just thought it was funny, even if it wasn't true. It spread like wildfire on the internet. Also, look, adolescent boys put their penises in a lot of places. And even if it were true, I don't think that would say anything about his character.
I know, but he's such a sanctimonious prick. And they have said so much shit. Michelle Obama's, when they go low, we go high. Fuck that. When they go low right now, we have no choice but to go lower, because we cannot risk the... Donald Trump just said you'll never have to vote. You'll never have to vote again. He's literally saying to them, don't worry, my family and I will be president forever and we'll never let there be another election. So I don't give a shit how many couch fucking memes we need. My favorite one was a picture of the Oval Office with all those couches, and the person wrote, "We cannot let JD Vance into the Oval Office." I don't care how much there is. I don't care what we have to do. We have to crush them like the bugs they are.
Okay. And obviously no one is going to vote no one's going to vote for Kamala Harris because they're uncomfortable with the couch thing. But one of the interesting things that has happened in the last couple of days is that Democrats seem to be coalescing around this idea that Trump and Vance are quote unquote weird. And this is I think it's a really interesting development. It's hard to know what sort of effect it will have in terms of votes, but for so long that was the argument that Republicans would make about Democrats. The Republicans would say, we're the we're the advocates of traditional values, the nuclear family. And Democrats want to do all this crazy, bizarre, threatening stuff. They want think there are 25 genders, and they have, they have all of these strange, radical, bizarre ideas that make you feel uncomfortable. And now Democrats are actually flipping that around. And because it turns out that when you actually interrogate some of the things, especially Vance thinks, but also Trump, that they are a little off. These quotes that are coming out about him saying, these childless Democrats are all a bunch of, angry old cat ladies who want to make us all as miserable as
Oh,
they are.
God bless. God bless. Keep attacking cat ladies. Keep attacking single women. You know who fucking votes? Single women. You know who likes cats? Half the country. I don't, but well, my daughter has a really cute cat. But people love their cats. Keep attacking people who like cats.
Yeah, but what it turns out is that some of those ideas about family, when you dig a little bit deeper into them, they turn into a real kind of hostility and some sort of strange ideas. If you really take it seriously, and this is one of the things about Vance that gets him into trouble, is that he takes some of those ideas about traditional values and family structure to a couple of more degrees that may sound perfectly logical, but actually turn out to be things that people don't like at all. So he thinks that there's something problematic about being childless, and there are lots of people who are childless, and he thinks that you should have lots of babies,
But simultaneously, of no problem with banning IVF.
or that he said that people should stay in quote unquote violent marriages, which means of course women should stay married to their abusers.
His grandmother, that story about his grandmother, I want to ask you, how do you think that plays? He tells a story about his grandmother, who's this crazy old lady who has 14 loaded weapons
19.
all over her house. And that is what a real America, that's the values we're fighting for. I know that there are all those representatives who do Christmas cards with their toddlers holding AR-15s, but do we really think the vast majority of Americans view a nut job, lunatic old woman with 14 loaded guns as America that we want?
It was actually 19 guns, but I think you're right, and I think this is actually one of those things where one of the things we know about Vance is that he really is deeply involved in a kind of conservative bubble that involves just a lot of people like Don Jr., a lot of knuckleheads, but also people who take themselves seriously as intellectuals. And when you get so immersed in that world, it can be a little difficult to see that maybe people don't share your beliefs. And this is true of gun culture because there is a subculture within the vast number of tens of millions of people who have guns in their houses. There's a subculture of people who are really gun fetishists and do create Christmas cards, with every member of the family holding an assault rifle, including the 6-year-old. And those people, I think, are looked on by your average gun owner, who is maybe somebody who has a hunting rifle, as those people are weird, that they have, taken guns and turned them into a fetish object. And so I think Vance assumes that that is a broad culture and not just a kind of bizarre subculture on the right. And so when he comes out and says, "Yeah, my grandmother had 19 guns stashed around the house," even most gun owners would say, that's a really bad idea. And it's kind of a miracle that she didn't kill somebody, probably someone in her own family. And yet everybody in the hall at the Republican convention laughs and they think, it's so charming. But that's not how most Americans react to that. They think this is kind of weird. And so I think that's part of the problem that Republicans have in a lot of different ways, is being within that bubble of their own supporters and their own perspectives and not wanting to kind of get outside it to persuade other people. And Trump says this all the time. He says, "I don't need more votes. They've just been stealing the votes. I've already got all the votes I need." And the problem is, no, you actually do need some more votes, dude. He lost the popular vote in the 2016 election. They got wiped out in the 2018 election, which was about him. He lost the 2020 election. They underperformed in the 2022 election, which was about him. And he's never been able to assemble a majority. He needs to get people who are not currently supporting him to come on over. And the more that he is stuck within just trying to appeal to whatever makes the people at his rallies cheer and laugh, the more difficult it can become for him.
I want to see ads like that. I want to see ads with the bristling guns and Vance saying my grandmother with her 19 guns and Trump saying whatever fucking lunatic shit he says about guns. And then I want to see a responsible gun owner saying, I have a hunting rifle and I have a handgun for protection. And that's crazy. And this is how I make sure that my guns aren't used by the wrong people. And then I want him to put like a couple of crazy kids who shot up a school because their parents are like his cat, that his grandmother. And I want to see ads with women who've had abortions and women who need IVF. I want to see a childless woman say, a group of them, one woman who's childless by choice, one woman who's wishes she could have kids but needs IVF and can't afford it. And I like those are the kinds of ads. Like, I whatever the great positive ads, blah blah blah. I like attack ads. And I think attack ads are the most effective. You're the communication guy. Don't you think attack ads are effective?
Sure. And the challenge right now for Democrats is to simultaneously maintain and build on the enthusiasm that has come out. We've seen just in the last week about Harris. And then also go after that small but vital group of people in the middle who are still like, I'm not so sure. And a lot of them were not so sure because they thought Biden wasn't capable of being president. And now you have the opportunity to convince them that the things that they didn't like about Donald Trump are even more important than they remembered. And also that Harris is acceptable. So you have to do both at the same time. And I do think a lot of that validation from people who are even still call themselves Republicans is important. And that's been a thing that we've seen in politics for a long time. In 1964, when Lyndon Johnson was running against Barry Goldwater, he had this ad called "Confessions of a Republican," where it was an actor, but he talked about how he's always been a Republican. His father was a Republican, but the things that Barry Goldwater says now are just crazy, and he scares him. And we've seen that occasionally in the past. And you have all these groups like the Lincoln Project and stuff. A lot of what they
Right.
do is creating online videos and things that it's not clear how much of effect they have, but they do actually play an important role, which is to go after that sliver of people in the middle who are maybe
Right.
Republican or maybe like used to be Republicans and now like in the Trump era they've become independents, but their votes are still up for grabs. This is going to be an extremely close election, and it's going to be decided, by a few thousand votes in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Arizona and Georgia, and you have to go after it on that whole spectrum.
What do you think? I have a friend, she's a brilliant, brilliant writer, screenwriter. She's African American. And we are talking about this like how you get the votes from white people who actually don't like black people, but they also don't like Trump. There's a lot of white people who don't really like black people. She had this great line, which I don't know, like, how do you think it plays? Which is, you might not like black people, but I promise you, you'll like fascism less.
The only problem with that is that it makes explicit that I'm acknowledging your dislike of black people. And part of the way racism operates is that a lot of it is subtle and unconscious. And there are people who, it's like all those people who say, well, I would vote for a woman, just not this woman. They don't think that they are sexist. And most people who have, it's not like there's a dividing line between people who are like racist and not racist. People who think
Mm,
of themselves as racist are just this tiny proportion of people, who actually
right.
literally have Klan robes in their house. And everybody else thinks like, I'm not racist, but
I don't
I
see
just I
race.
just yeah, I just get really mad when I see Barack Obama in the White House. But I'm not racist. And so you have to account for that. You have to account for the fact that their self-conception is that they are not racist, even though they may have a lot of beliefs that really are racist.
All I have to say is we fucking better win. Because, first of all, I've been on that Kamala train since 2007 and I want to be smug and gloat. And second of all, I really, like we always say, it's existential. This is existential. And I have no interest in living in this country if it isn't a true democracy. I mean, we've already got a Supreme Court that's like, oh yeah, he can shoot whoever he wants. As long as it's, in the course of his duties. Yeah, yeah, no, he can kill whoever he wants. Like, no, I don't want to live in that country. We have to do something about the Supreme Court. I mean, I don't know if we can break the fever like Buttigieg says. He thinks we're going to break the fever of Trump. I think that Hillary was right, that there's a basket of deplorables and their fever will not be broken. But like, maybe they'll get old and die. I don't know what their kids are like, but we cannot let these people win, because if they win this time, they're going to make it so they never lose again. They just are. Project 2025, that lunacy. I love what Kamala says. Can you believe they wrote it down?
Hillary Clinton only said that half of Trump supporters were in the basket of deplorables. So she was being generous. But you're right. This is existential in a lot of ways. I don't know if the fever is ever going to break. It is important to remember that, there will always be conservatives. If you're a liberal, just like if you're a liberal, if you're a conservative,
That's
there will always be
fine.
liberals. And
That's
uh,
fine. That's not what we're talking about, right? Like, these people aren't even conservative. Like, one of my closest friends, a guy I adore, was, when we first met, he was he clerked for Clarence Thomas. Okay. And this is a man I genuinely, genuinely love. And he looks at this and he's like, what is happening? These people are crazy. So you can disagree about all sorts of issues. Like, I can find your opinions loathsome, and I could even call your opinions racist. But this is something else entirely. These people, like you said, they hate me. They would just as soon see me and everybody else they put in my basket dead. And they literally are walking around with AR-15. So it is really different from having a political. I always think what you said once, where you're like, there will always be you're going to see another Republican administration. That's just going to happen in your life. Like, you can't treat it like it's an impossibility and something intolerable. But like, this is different. This is something else. This is another beast.
and look, a lot of people hate you in particular.
Oh, thank you, Paul. I think that's a note on which we should close.
Well, this is the message to Republican America, which is that even if you lose this election, Ayelet Waldman will still be around, but it's going to be okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye, guy.
Boundary Issues is produced and edited by Paul Waldman. Our music is by Zeke Shaban. If you'd like to get in touch, you can email us at waldmanpodcast@gmail.com. And this is a listener-supported podcast. So if you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/boundaryissues. See you next time.